Our loving Heavenly Father, thank you so much. And as we learn and read and think about how wonderfully we are made, you have spared no expense to make us a wonderful creation. And Father, as we learn how to help and prevent disease, then we ask that you would be in that help also. Father, we praise you and thank you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Okay, so if anybody has a question, here I'm gonna hand this to you. You can be the baton passer. Okay. Hmm.
So it's on?
Okay. So let me ask you a question. We already had this question. What is cholesterol?
Um, your uh, your bowel movement, your metabolism speeds up
Okay.
when you start to eat dirty foods and other things like that,
Okay.
and brings it into dirtiness culture outside the churches and all that. So, food is very important and to eat. So it depends what food you eat at the time.
That's correct. Okay. So Webster's dictionary defines it as this: cholesterol is an oil base that and so it does not mix well with blood, which it is a water base, and therefore is carried around in the body, in the blood, by lipoproteins. Cholesterol is a sterol. In other words, it is a building block for many, many other things in your body. Did you know that every single cell in your entire body has cholesterol in it? Every cell. And it uses it for different purposes. One cell might be used as a steroid. Another cell might be using it as a hormone. Another cell might be using it to make something else. You know that your cells are made of what's called a phospholipid bilayer. In other words, it has a fat molecule, and then it has two little legs, and a fat molecule and two little legs, and these little legs kind of touch. But this is a layer. It goes all the way around the cell, and this is a layer, and it goes all the way around the cell. It's two layers, and then there's cholesterol in that. So every cell has to have cholesterol. So let me ask you a question. Is it good or is it bad? It's both, right? Okay. If you don't have enough cholesterol, what happens? You die. You know, I had a friend one time, and his medical doctor had him on Lipitor, and his cholesterol got down to about 67. I don't think that was quite enough. I've seen it. I've seen it that low before, but that's not quite enough. If you have too much, what will eventually happen? Clogged arteries. So what's the end result? You die. Okay, so we can't be on one extreme or the other, right? We need to be in that middle ground, which is where? What is, probably 10 years ago they used to say that, if you were under 250, you were okay. Well, now they're really wanting you to be under 200. And, for vegetarians and like that, we'd like to see them above 100. At one time I had my cholesterol checked. I was probably in my 20s, and my cholesterol was 97, my total cholesterol. And so I thought, I don't feel bad, so it can't be bad. But, typically we want to see people above 100. And so the idea that it is good and bad. Well, if it's good, what is it good for? Cholesterol has four main functions. It contributes to the structure of cell walls. Remember that? It makes up digestive bile acids in the intestine. Where does that take place? In the liver, because the liver is what makes bile, and then it puts it in that little sac, and then as you eat fats, it squirts it out to break down the fat. Okay? You also must have cholesterol to produce vitamin D. Now, is vitamin D important up here? It's very important up here. I mean, you know, when you live south of Bakersfield, not so big of a deal, but, you know, because you're getting lots of sun to expose and things like that. So up here, we may need more cholesterol in order to produce more vitamin D. And vitamin D is essential for mood and for immune boosting properties and like that. So we have to be able to convert cholesterol to vitamin D. Where is that done? Where does that conversion take place? In your skin. Because when the sunlight hits your skin, it converts cholecalciferol into vitamin D. Okay? All right. And then it enables the body to make certain hormones. You know, we wouldn't have any hormones if we didn't have any cholesterol. As a matter of fact, a lot of the runners and like that who are extremely lean, they start to diminish their hormones, and there's many of them, especially females, who stop menses. Okay? They don't have a period at all because they have reduced their body fat and reduced their cholesterol levels to a level that they can't make the hormones to produce that body function. Does that make sense? Okay. Yep.
So does that mean that it applies to men and women for the hormones, or just women?
Well, we see different responses in men in that we have seen that they become not sterile, but they have a harder time producing the sperm and things like that, because that also takes a hormone. And so if you are that active and, you know, marathon runner or a highly competitive athlete like that, many times you can't have children as a man. You can't have children until after though you have gotten away from that activity for a considerable amount of time. So yes, it is men and women.
So even later in life for
No,
women
typically
too?
not. It is more dependent on the overactivity and the reduction of overall body fat and the amount of cholesterol that's actually in the body. So it's not a long-term thing. If you change your lifestyle, let's say you're a competitive runner and you stop running and you have a fairly healthy diet, your cholesterol or your hormones would build back up, and at that point you would continue to have normal bodily functions. So it's not like, oh, I ran as a child and I ran so hard that I stopped having these reproductive hormones. That doesn't affect you the rest of your life. As soon as those activities are in the past and providing you have a good normal diet, then that would continue. You would continue on in a normal life.
I see. Thank you.
Yep. So we need this cholesterol in order to produce normal body functions. However, on the flip side of that coin, if we have too much, here's a study on dementia that it says that too much cholesterol has been studied and can affect your cognitive levels. Does that make sense? So there's a link to high cholesterol and low cognitive function. Okay? Do we see which? Well, let me just continue because I have that question. High cholesterol linked to infertility. We were just kind of talking about this, right? So if we have too high of cholesterol, we were kind of talking about the other side of that coin. If we have too high of cholesterol or if we have too low of cholesterol, both of those can cause infertility. Cholesterol levels could be be in the long wait to become pregnant. A new study from the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology. Okay, studies link high LDL cholesterol to aortic valve disease, and heart problems with high cholesterol have not been. It's not a new thing, right? We've kind of known this for years and years. A study published in the Journal of American Medical Association claimed to have found evidence to support the cause of association between high levels of bad cholesterol and aortic valve stenosis. Now, stenosis is getting narrower, okay? A form of aortic valve disease in which the aortic valve is narrowed restricts the blood flow from the heart. Okay, so we know that we need it. We also know that too much of it can be bad, okay? How do we know, I didn't type that right. How can we know what our cholesterol is? Right, and that's typically called a lipid panel, right? They're going to do, they may do to see how high your cholesterol is. This gives us a numerical value to what our cholesterol is. Now, if you have low LDL, that's a good thing. And we call it bad cholesterol, but it's just cholesterol. It's when this number gets high that that number and the value is bad. But the cholesterol is just there because of what we've done. Okay, it's there as a representation of our lifestyle. And typically we want to see that number under 200, right? But we never want to see it at 0. Okay? What condition is the most common? Having too high a cholesterol or too low of cholesterol? High cholesterol is most common. You have okay. So, we rarely hear, "Wow, I don't have enough." That's not the case. I mean, we live in America, right? Here, this is usually what we hear. Whoa, that's really high. So we want to be careful with our high and low cholesterol. Yes.
I have physical,
Yes.
and they test my blood and all that. They never tell me anything about it, unless probably when the doctors, they never explain. They don't explain unless you ask them, and we don't know what to ask for, But unless your cholesterol is really high, then they're going to tell you, you need to do something about it. I have never heard anything saying it's too high or it's too low. So how do we know?
Okay. So very first thing, if you ever, and I don't care what you're going for, if you ever go to the doctor and you have a test done of any kind, it doesn't matter what kind of test, the very first thing out of your mouth is, "I want a copy of that, please." You want to make sure that you always, 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 always have a copy. And they cannot refuse you a copy of it. Of the whatever test that they have done on you, whether it's a blood test or they've done a physical test and they wrote a report, all of that is yours for free. Now, if you start saying, "Okay, I'd like that sent to my doctor," or it's 2 years down the road and you say, "I'd like a copy of that," they're going to say, "Okay, well, it's so much a page and we'll send it to you." And it usually takes about 6 months. So when you're in the doctor's office, make sure that if they're doing some sort of test, you say, "I want a copy of that, please." No. her doctor she said that her doctor asks if she would like a copy, but some of them, they don't even think about you.
Yeah.
Right, right. They absolutely cannot refuse to give you a copy. I mean, yes.
The ones who take it, they will not have anything to do with it, okay? And when the doctor gets it, they don't, unless your bones are broke or whatever, they will mention it. Other than that, oh, it's fine.
Yes. So typically with an x-ray, what they will offer you is the report of findings. In other words, they have taken an x-ray, they've had a radiologist look at it, and now he did a report. That's what they're going to typically offer you, is the report of what the findings on that on that radiograph was. Okay, and so, and even if there is some anomaly on that x-ray, that will be on that report. And so, you know, if they said, well, this person came in for a fracture, had the left ulnar x-rayed, and there was no abnormal findings. However, it included a shoulder series, and this person has a anomaly in the left shoulder. That will always be there. If there is any kind of anomaly that was not associated with the injury or what have you, they must put it in the report of findings. Okay? Chiropractors, when they first started to be called physicians, they were called that because somebody may not be going to a medical doctor, and that chiropractor may take an x-ray, and they were responsible for everything on that x-ray. If a person, let's say they took a chest x-ray or an abdominal x-ray, and they were looking for bone, but they saw a distended aorta, that was to be put in the report of findings, because that's a critical finding, and the patient needs to be made aware of it. Also, if they found a tumor or anything like that will be in that report. So, you know, if they see an anomaly, let's say they draw your blood just to see if you're anemic or not, and they find something else, you know, they find sickle cell anemia, they have to put that in a report. So even if they don't elect to tell you that, I would suggest that you always get a copy of that report, okay? Because it is definitely information that you can use, okay? And you may not be wanting to follow what they recommend, but if you have that in your hand, you can take it to somebody who wants to practice health the way that you want to practice health, and at least they have a baseline to go off of, okay?
Yeah, I was just going to say a little bit about the cholesterol that we were just talking about a few minutes ago. Sometimes the cholesterol, if you overact the body or if you overeat, some of those things can, especially when if you overdrink too much liquids or too much less liquids, sometimes that can have problems against the esophagus in your bodies, and that can push some gas off from the back. But to alliterate that means you need to be constantly drinking more water for that cholesterol to go down, so that esophagus in the gas X would happen once in a while. So at least that helps. The way I found it, the way I worked out my way out was when I first came to the States from Bulgaria, I would first start drinking water right away with food immediately. But then things kind of spread out to where the whole section, you know, the life, the economy, you know, everything was just different, you know. But now, since everything was just slowing down, and my cholesterol is just down just a little bit, so it is a little high, not much. So if I were not to drink enough liquids, then I could say the economy can get so much as worse, but if I start drinking water like I did, like hunger with food all the time,
Right.
and gobble water, sometimes the esophagus can sometimes plug into the systems. But that doesn't say that you're going to go to the bathroom or you're going to have number type 1 or type 2 go to the bathroom. That's a different story.
Right.
So I'm in between it right now.
Okay. Well, that's exactly what we're gonna talk about. So, so what do we do if we have number 2? You know, remember that? Whoa, that's really high. What do we do then? Well, where does cholesterol come from? Exactly. There are 2 types of cholesterol. One of them you put in your mouth. This is contained in the food in which you are eating. Now, what contains cholesterol as a food item? An animal. Any animal. Doesn't matter whether it's pork or cow or horse or eel. Any living thing has cholesterol in it because it's important in their body too, right? So they have that cholesterol. And so the very first thing that we want to do, if we're trying to lower our cholesterol, is not eat the things that have cholesterol in them. Does that make sense? So if it has a face or a mother, it has cholesterol in it, right? So then we want to stop eating those because those things are contributing to our cholesterol. Now, the reality is how much does that contribute to our cholesterol? It contributes 20% of our cholesterol. So if we decided, okay, I want to lower my cholesterol today, the very first thing I do is I stop eating anything that has cholesterol in it, and what have I done? I've removed 20% of the potential cholesterol in my body. I've removed it. It's no longer going in. So I have decreased my potential to have high cholesterol by 20%. Well,
Gas, air. It's basically losing air out of your system, out of your body. It's not really food because all food is just doing is built up against the muscles.
well, it's
So that
not.
builds up the
It's
muscle
not
slowly.
air. It is actually a fat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so we want to make sure that we are not contributing to our body through fat. Now, the other thing is that did you know that there are no plants, not one, that contain cholesterol? No plants. Is everybody with me? No plants. They do not have cholesterol. So where does the other 80% of cholesterol come from that's in our body? We make it, okay? So not only the foods that we eat could have cholesterol in them, but did you know there are certain foods that you can eat to cause your body to create cholesterol? And that's 80%. So let's say you're a vegetarian and you decide, okay, well, I don't eat meat. Why is my cholesterol so high?
High-fat foods.
High-fat foods. Those foods that don't have cholesterol in them, they can be a plant-based food, but they cause your body to create cholesterol in order to deal with these high-fat foods. Does that make sense? Okay? So we want to make sure that not only do we reduce the amount of cholesterol that we are taking into our body, but the foods that would eventually in our body create more cholesterol. Okay? And that it really would take a little bit of education to know what those foods are, but I'm going to give you a pretty simple let's see. Okay. So you remember this slide? We said there are 4 things that the body does with cholesterol. Okay. Do you remember this segment? It says it makes up digestive biles in the it says in the intestine, but it doesn't make them up in the intestine. It makes up these digestive biles in the liver. Okay. Well, if you are trying to reduce a fat in your digestive tract. Let's say you took a cup of butter and you just decided you were going to eat that. Let's say margarine, because we're really talking about foods that don't have cholesterol on them. So we take a cup of margarine, and I'm going to eat this cup of margarine. I'm just using a spoon, and ooh, I love margarine. Oh, it's so good. It's just kidding. But I'm going to eat this. What's going to happen next? It's going to go into my stomach. It's going to kind of get churned up. It's going to move it through the duodenum. And then what? The liver and the pancreas are going to do what? They're going to secrete enzymes and bile in order to emulsify or break down that fat. Okay? So if I eat a whole cup of margarine, there's going to be a lot of requirement for bile, right? And so at that point, the body says, this guy's diet is out of whack. I need to produce more. So it's going to produce bile salts and bile liquid in order to break down more fats. So what are the fats that are really the problem? Saturated fats? Trans fatty acids? Hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fats? We really, we do how many of you have ever done a gallbladder flush? Okay, this gallbladder flush, at the very end, you take a quarter cup of olive oil. Is it a half a cup? And you drink that with some grapefruit juice. Why do you do that? You're doing a gallbladder flush. The idea is that when that free oil hits the intestine, your gallbladder is going to contract in order to flush out the contents in it. And when it flushes out, you're hoping that it squeezes hard enough to expel all its contents. Now, a half a cup of olive oil is nothing but free fat. Okay? And so your body is saying, now it's going to make more bile, isn't it? Because you've just told it to. And so you, with the free fats, you've interjected and said, okay, I need more cholesterol because I've just got rid of all my bile. You see how that works? I kind of see a puzzled look on some of your faces. Susan, what are you thinking? Do you understand how that works?
When the liver and the gallbladder have to go like, emergency, emergency, a half a cup of olive oil. Are you kidding me?
But did you know that a cookie can have a tablespoon of olive oil in it? Or whatever oil? And let's say we eat 6 cookies. Or we have a muffin, and it has 2 tablespoons of oil in it. You see what I'm saying? The less sweet the bread, obviously, the less oil it probably has in it. But it's the equivalent. We eat 2 muffins, and we've eaten a quarter of a cup of olive oil, or whatever the oil is in there. Does that make sense? Okay? So the reality is that your body needs to emulsify that fat. And these fats are saturated fats, trans fatty acids, hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated fats that have been added. If you eat an ear of corn, how much corn oil does it have in it? One ear of corn? Did you know that in order to make a tablespoon of corn oil, you need 18 ears of corn? 18 ears. How many of you here can eat 18 ears of corn in one setting? Me neither. And if I did, the next day would not be so pleasant. Okay? So, she's up here contemplating this. Oh. Yes, that 18 years of corn would give all of us problems. Okay? So Where should our fat be? In your food. Right. Now, if we look at Dean, or let's say we have a patient who has a heart problem, and they have high cholesterol, plugged arteries, they have all kinds of other heart issues. If we look at Dean Ornish, Pritikin, Esselstyn, McDougall, what do all of those guys say about fats, especially in regards to heart patients? No added fats. As a matter of fact, Dean Ornish and Pritikin both say that you, at least for the first 6 months to the first year, you can't even add natural fats. You can't have olives, you can't have avocados, you can't have nuts. Okay? But they get tremendous results of clearing their arteries of all that cholesterol that is in those foods, right? Their body no longer makes any more cholesterol than it absolutely needs to make hormones and things like that. And so if we can get away from these added fats, our cholesterol will go down. Now, is that the only thing we can do? Go ahead. Here's the microphone right here.
I had went to the doctor, and they did a blood test, and they said that my cholesterol was high. So then I went on a diet. Well, no, they didn't know. That's what it was. They just thought so. So then they told me that they thought I had a problem, and they gave me pills and everything else. And come to find out, I didn't have high cholesterol.
Okay.
But they gave me a paper for a diet to go by. So I don't know if I did for sure or if I didn't. But anyway, now I guess I don't.
Okay. Well, that's not all bad, as long as you have you know that your cholesterol is not. Okay. Now, so once we get to a point that we say, okay, I'm ready to lower my cholesterol, what should I do? So we kind of talked about the first step. What's the first step? Stop eating. You always want to drink plenty of liquids and water. That's a great idea. But the very first thing that we want to do after drinking enough water and like that is we want to stop eating the things that has cholesterol in it. All your animal products. Now remember, it doesn't matter whether we're advocating a vegetarian diet or not. We're telling a person who has high cholesterol that, and this is a potentially dangerous situation, in order to reduce your cholesterol, you must stop eating things that have cholesterol in them. Okay? We're talking about reducing somebody's cholesterol. Okay? The second thing is stop eating things that require your body to make cholesterol. And what is that?
All those kinds of fats you talked about.
Free fats, right? Doesn't matter whether it's in a cookie or a cake or even in fried potatoes, right? Doesn't matter. You need to stop using the free fats. This is probably the area that people are going to need the most education. Okay? It's going to be hard for them to wrap their head around what kind of fat? And you say, no fat. And they say, what? And it doesn't help that, we've got fat-free this and fat-free that. And there's really stuff in there that causes the fat to be in your body. These fat-free things aren't necessarily fat-free. Yeah.
When I was trying to do that, I couldn't understand because they said to not use any oil. And I thought, how am I supposed to cook with no oil? And it was confusing. So I tried water, steaming, and doing it that way. And then, to not eat the meats and that. But it was very confusing, I believe.
Let me tell you a story. As I grew up in Oregon, and we grew a lot of our foods, and I was not vegetarian at the time, but my mom boiled or baked almost everything. It's the way we ate food. It was either boiled or baked. When I met my wife, I met her mom. And it was the very first time I'd ever seen vegetables fried. We'd had fried potatoes, okay? But I'd never seen fried corn, fried green beans, you know, a lot of these other fried foods, fried green tomatoes, fried okra. I mean, I'd never seen these things because that's not how we ate. Now, believe me, we've tried over the years to change her mom's eating habits. And one of her favorite foods is what's called wilted lettuce. And she'll take several different types of lettuce, but she'll heat oil up to about 350 degrees and pour it over the top and sear the lettuce with this oil. And then she takes cornbread and sops up the oil and picks up the lettuce and eats it that way. You think there's a little bit of oil in what she's eating? And, you know, so now, we would be willing to do a cooking class right after the first of the year, probably the second or third week in January, and how not to use any oil in cooking. But some of it's just going to be how you cook. It's going to be things like, you know, we're going to bake a potato, or we're going to use, we're going to use some things that make a difference in how things come out once you've changed the way you're cooking.
Well, is there a limit to how much you can use and how much you not use?
The limit depends on your health. You know, if let's say your cholesterol is 150. You know, you've got a good cholesterol that, you know, obviously you're handling it right and things like that. Having a small amount of oil is not damaging. Now, that can get out of hand, obviously. But if you are a heart patient and you've had a quadruple bypass, how much oil is safe?
None.
0. I mean, at that point, you know, or what if your dad had a quadruple bypass and he had multiple heart attacks, and now you're saying, yeah, I just don't want to go down that road. You know, my cholesterol's kind of 200. You know, I kind of eat okay, but I just don't want to go down that road. What's the best answer? Yeah, cut it back to where, you know, it's either very little or none, because at that point your body's healing itself. And so we want to get you to a point, and it does. It really depends on your health status or what your optimal goal is going forward. Because if your goal is, hey, I don't want to have a heart attack like my dad did. You see what I'm saying?
How does exercise affect one way or another?
Well, exercise is one of the best things for raising your HDL, which is your high density lipoprotein. There you go. Thank you. And so when you go in and have your cholesterol checked, they'll give you two different numbers and a total. Okay, they'll give you an LDL and an HDL, and the degree at which those are separated indicates how susceptible you are for a heart attack. It's a ratio, so you'll have a HDL to LDL ratio, and if it's too far separated, it indicates that you could have a heart attack.
Into a moderate speed.
That's
into
correct.
A moderate speed of walking, distance, running for something for no reason, that you're in a hurry to get something across the park or something across the road or something like that. So if you either racing yourself to your life with no certain conditions, then those deals need to follow us, to take the slow steps into take your time, walking a distance. A fast pace of walk is probably not a good exercise for a lot of it, because it's moderate speed. Once you moderate the speed a lot faster than a higher normal, then you start to pace a lot of heartbeats.
Well, that irregular exercise, or let's say, you know, you're about to miss the bus and you're running to get on the bus, but that's not your normal everyday function. You don't run to catch the bus every day. The reality is that creates stress, and that stress can be a complication and cause you to have a heart attack. the reality is that if you want to narrow that LDL, HDL window, the best way to do that, and we're just talking about the ratio, we're not talking about total cholesterol up and down, we're talking about the ratio, is to raise your HDL. And the best way to raise your HDL is by exercise. The best way to raise it. So you want to have a daily exercise. But again, like you said, if it's stressful, yes. It can certainly precipitate a heart attack. Yes.
Well, maybe if you're really unhealthy, but what the recent research has shown is that sprinting and any kind of exercise is one of the best ways to exercise and to burn fat. That you go along at a moderate speed, and then you run a little bit, and then you slow down and walk, and then you run a little bit and stop. Has been found to be the most effective form of exercise.
What you're describing is a regular intervals of exercise. You're not describing, I'm sitting on the couch all week and I missed the potato chip delivery outside, so I ran out there to catch him before he drove off.
Oh, you mean we forgot to put the garbage out when we hear the truck coming?
That's right. That's not exercise, okay? That's not what I'm talking about with regular exercise.
They used to say it had to be 20 minutes straight for cardio, and now they say, if you go out and you exercise for 5 minutes, anything that you do adds up over the day.
Well, that is true. However, we also need a mixture of our exercise, okay? We need to activate our muscles, to walk, 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour a day. We need that stress muscle exercise. But we also need something that increases our heart rate and it increases our breathing rate, okay? And we need it on a regular basis.
The exercise, talking about exercise, you don't want to just jump in and start going. No, you gradually.
Right.
I can tell you the story. I was not able to walk. I was totally disabled. And I used to walk on a trail in the valley, slowly, because my feet were hurting so much. And I used to see the joggers coming and going. I would say, I will never be able to do that. I kept on going, walking slowly, and eventually I started walking a little bit faster and faster. One day, I decided, I'm going to try. And I started jogging. I jogged a mile. And I thought, okay. From there on, I didn't stop. I kept increasing a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. I ended jogging 11 miles without stopping. Just going.
But you didn't jump out there and do 11 miles all at once.
I started doing
at
it
the very
gradually.
Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to continue to lower the cholesterol that's already there. Okay, let's say that we had an unhealthy lifestyle. We've started exercising. We've stopped eating the foods that contain cholesterol, and we've stopped eating the things that create cholesterol, but we still have high cholesterol. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add high fiber, okay? And high fiber actually will go through your system and collect cholesterol. Fiber is wonderful. It collects cholesterol, it collects excess insulin, things like that, and then it moves it out through your alimentary tract, and you get rid of it that way. Yes? There's two types of fiber. One of them is a soluble and one of them is an insoluble. The insoluble is predominantly the one that will move cholesterol. I'm telling you, high fiber. The reality is that what contains fiber?
Is it oatmeal? Is it wheat? Or what is it?
It is. Okay. So here's what fiber is. Anything that grows in the ground. Beans, potatoes, corn, celery, fruit, avocados, all of those. No, not in the ground. Only plants have fiber. Only plants have fiber. Did you know that there's no fiber in anything that used to be an animal or animal product? No fiber whatsoever. It doesn't. It's not there. It's just like plants don't have cholesterol. Yeah, any kind of plant-based food has fiber in it. And so, what am I telling you to do? Increase your fruits, nuts, and vegetables, seeds, nuts, and grains, right? Anything plant-based, because that fiber is going to increase your reduction of cholesterol. Okay? Now, the next one has.
Yeah, I wanted to go
Oh,
back.
I'm sorry.
I wanted to
I
go
thought you were
back.
holding the mic.
I'm waiting.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, I was wanting to know the ratio that the good and bad cholesterol should have, because you mentioned the ratio several times, but I didn't hear what it was.
I think it's a 1 to 3, but I didn't look that up before this class. I think it's a 1 to 3. So I'll have to look that up and let you know. How many of you ever heard of garlic affecting cholesterol? Garlic is one of the best studied herbs for cholesterol. I mean, they have studied it over and over and over. Now, you've heard this before. How much garlic do you need?
It will get into your sneeziness. You'll get into a lot of infection things in the body. So you want to always cut garlic.
So
less.
we're talking about how much is therapeutic.
When everybody else knows you've had enough.
Exactly. So if you're really desiring to reduce your cholesterol and you're using garlic to do that, the amount is, I've had people on approximately a bulb of garlic a day. A bulb. Now, that's not real hard to eat. You want to eat it raw. I'm not talking about sautéing it in oil. I'm talking about raw. Now, if you have a big salad, you could eat most of that bulb of garlic in a salad. A big salad, okay? But you just chop it up. Now, my wife, she's a brave soul. She'll take it a clove at a time, mince it up like this, pop it in her mouth, swallow it with water, and it's done. But the reality is that you need to take it in a way that it doesn't bother your stomach, because too much garlic will bother your stomach. So, eating a lot of it, and the more you eat, the more you get used to it. The more you eat, the less people get used to it.
My brother had an elephant garlic every day.
An ounce?
He had,
Elephant garlic.
my brother had second stage cancer.
Yes.
He started on a elephant garlic every day. He would boil it for 1 minute, let it cool, peel it, and eat it. And it didn't have any odor left after.
So
but they didn't find any cancer.
we want to make sure that we're talking the part in the garlic that helps the sulfur, that helps the cholesterol. That part needs to
It
be
won't
raw
hurt it?
in order
Oh,
to
okay.
in order to help drive down cholesterol. Now there are cases where we do boil a piece of garlic or something like that in order to achieve another result, but it's more for a mineral than it is for something that may be destroyed in that cooking process. Okay?
So on the, I'm going back to the HDL and the HDL, HDL and LDL. No, the one on this side. But the HDL, I guess, is the one I'm talking
Yes.
about. So that's the one you're trying to lower for the cholesterol, right?
No, you want to raise that one.
Oh, you want to raise it.
You want to raise that one.
It.
Right.
That's what.
There you go. Okay,
That's
so
what's confusing, is because they have it where they're saying it's too high, and you have to. I don't know. I don't
they're
get it.
saying that the LDL is too high typically. Or they may say your
LDL.
total is too high.
Yeah, But you're supposed to lower it or higher it.
You want to
and
lower your LDL,
Yeah.
and you want to increase your HDL. Okay.
Okay, so then eating eggs, which is 200 and some in cholesterol, that's for which one?
You're going to raise your LDL.
So it's the LDL then on that one.
Yes. You don't
Okay.
want. That's the
Thank
one
you.
that you don't want to be high.
Okay, I get it.
I'm trying to look at these here from the American Heart Association, but it's you want your happy or your H cholesterol 60 milligrams to the deciliter and higher.
Okay.
So they want that to be higher, and then they say, I guess the optimal level for the LDL, which is considered the bad cholesterol,
Yes.
is less than 100 or 100 to 129.
Okay, so that's less than a 1-to-2 ratio. Okay, so if you got a ratio that's wider than that, then they would prefer that that's not the case. Yes.
How do we compare onion or garlic? I'll talk about it.
Well, it's actually to get it onto the.
To get it on. Okay, what about onions?
Onions and garlic are very much the same. Garlic is more potent. There are things that onions do that garlic can't. For instance, they did a study one time, and they took 5 families, and they all gave them different treatment modalities. Well, the last family, they didn't give them any treatment whatsoever. They chopped off the top and chopped off the bottom of a peeled onion, set it in a dish next to each person's bed, and they found that these people got well a lot quicker, mainly because the onion itself, as these people expired the breath out of them, it absorbed all of that bad germs and things like that, and basically purified it. And they then took that onion back to a laboratory, dissected it, and found that those germs and things like that were in the onion itself. So garlic can't do that. But how many times have we talked about having a poultice of onion, or a poultice over the neck, or drinking onion soup or something like that? Onion is very good at helping the immune system to boost and like that. But onions also don't have the ability to lower cholesterol, at least in the scientific world that we've seen these studies done.
Onions. And then I'd like to say, I guess this gentleman was right. H is for high. H is the cholesterol you want high.
H is the
L
one
is
you want
the one you
high.
want low.
Exactly.
HDL and LDL. Okay.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, if the low cholesterol and high cholesterols are both sides of the family, let's say.
And you need both.
And you need both. So if you mix both of them up by too much, you have so much potassium in between. So that's basically like gastrics and other things. And that's pretty big explosives into your body.
Okay.
That can almost be too much if you got too much mixed up cholesterol. So you want to always take the low cholesterol, because anywhere else, if you buy canned food or anything, you're always going to see some cholesterol that's going to say 45 cholesterol, 45 milligram cholesterol, or 50 milligram, or 125. Cholesterol is one of the worstest things that you want to ignore on canned food or anything like that, because it's always going to bother your body, because every time you eat food or whatever, you're always going to have some kind of sort of fat coming in your body. So
Right.
that's just...
So if it has cholesterol on the can, you know that there is an animal product in that can. Okay? Yes.
So then, if I understand it right, by the HDL and then the LDL, so it sounds like you want the high and the low mixed together to be normal,
They
and
will
then
be.
that way it would be
They won't be
right.
equivalent.
Well, they won't be.
Your HDL will always be lower
Oh.
than your LDL. Now,
HDL
you
will
want
be lower.
but when you're working on it, when you're actually trying to change it, you want to raise your HDL and you want to lower your LDL.
That's what
okay?
I'm saying, for
Yes.
them to come together to
They
do that.
they won't become equal.
Oh, they never
They
will.
will
Oh,
not
I
become equal.
see.
Your low density lipoprotein will always be higher than your high density lipoprotein. It's always the case. However, when you are trying to work on your cholesterol, you want to let's say you've got a cholesterol above 200 total cholesterol. That number you want to decrease. And that's a combination of the two. However, you want to decrease your LDL and you want to increase your HDL, which will decrease the ratio of the distance between them and lower your heart problem, your cardiac risk. Okay? The next one on this list is magnesium. Okay? Some things I just never get away from writing in a chemistry notation. And whenever I write calcium, it's always Ca++. It's just, you take 6 years of chemistry and it's like a new language. Magnesium has both an affinity for cholesterol and it has a relaxing effect on all tissues. And so when you take magnesium, it relaxes the blood vessels, the heart, all of the intestinal tract and like that. And so what happens is you find that some of those tissues start giving up cholesterol. And that allows it to be flushed into out into the elimination section. Now, one of them that the last one on the list, people don't like. How many of you have ever taken niacin? Okay, I've taken several doses this last week in order to try to increase my niacin, and I know that as I take it more and more often, I'll get less and less flush. But I took it like Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and each time I had a very significant flush. One of them was right before bed, and I couldn't get comfortable for almost an hour. But that is part of the activation of what it does. It increases circulation, and in any situation where we're trying to flush out cholesterol from an artery and like that, we want improved blood flow. Okay, and so we want to get this cholesterol out into the elimination channels. Niacin is wonderful for that. It helps to increase blood flow. It helps to eliminate some of the cholesterols and like that. So let me tell you a story. Niacin is a B vitamin. Well, it increases blood flow, and it also has a tranquilizing effect on the nerves.
Is it those fruity gummies that you eat for fiber?
No.
Is that what it means?
It's a B vitamin.
So it's like a pill, whatever.
Yes, it could be in a pill. It's also in almost all of your grains.
Okay.
The numbers. Okay, so with your
Which B vitamin is it? Isn't it
B3.
B2? B3.
Yeah.
And there's like 6
There's
Bs?
12
Bs?
Well, it depends on how you count them. If you count B15 and B17, those are both good. But there's B1, 2, 3, 6, 12, 15, and 17. So.
According to the number, is it the strength of it?
Oh no, because every number is a different one. Yeah, the milligrams. If you're actively trying to reduce cholesterol, here's what I would do. I would start with 250 on the first day.
Vitamin B3?
Yes, niacin. And not the flushless or the niacinamide. Both of those do not act in the cardiovascular system. Exactly. Did you hear that? Do not get niacinamide and do not get the non-flush niacin. Neither one of those act appropriately for the condition that we're treating. They do have an application, but this is not one of them. We always want the flush kind. No. I don't. Here, I'll lend you my pen. You write it on your paper. I would start with a very low dose. 50. I mean, if you can get niacin in a 50 dose, start with that, and then increase the amount that you take that each day. So let's say you take it on the first day, you take 50. The next day you take 2 doses of 50. The next day you take 3 doses of 50, and go at it as slow as you need to. But the idea is you want to build up to approximately, and it's different for each person. This is, remember, I told you a while back ago, I don't like to give a whole lot of numbers because it is very individualized. People, you know, if I said, okay, I want all of you to go to 3,000, well, 3,000 might be too much for some of you. It might not be enough for me. So, you know, it's independent for each one of them. But I would say if you were up to 500 to 1,000 milligrams per day, that's a good quality, a good quantity. Until your cholesterol comes down. That's what we're looking for. Remember, this is what we're talking about. We want the cholesterol to come down. We want, and then you would probably be on a maintenance dose. So you might do the 50 or 100 once a day after that, just to keep you in good health.
So you don't do that until the doctor tells you where your cholesterol is.
Who's the doctor in your life?
Oh.
Who's responsible for your health? What doctor is going to tell you to get on niacin?
How do I know?
You can go and
yeah, that's what I was saying.
you can
Unless
go
the doctor
and
tells you,
well, listen. I can't speak for you. If I went in and I found out that I have 250 or 300 total cholesterol, and they said you need to get this down. Here's a prescription for some Lipitor. Okay?
That's vitamin B.
Lipitor is a drug.
Oh, that's a drug?
Okay? So they tell you, here's a prescription. This will help your cholesterol to come down. Okay? At that point, I would say, thank you very much. And could I get a copy of my results? Okay? Now, I would come home and I would, this is me, not you. What you do is up to you. But I would easily wad that up and file it in chapter 13. You know, that file 13.
If you throw it away, how will you know when to, you know, what your results are by doing?
No. I would throw the prescription away.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant the lab results.
The lab results, I keep those as a personal record because that is definite. That was my lab results. The next thing that I would do is I would get myself on a program like this in order to lower my cholesterol. At the end of, she's going to schedule another appointment, 3 months, 6 months down the road, and we just want to see how you're doing. Great. You go in, they do another test. Wow, that stuff must be working. Your cholesterol's down 50 points. You see what I'm saying?
You see, the thing is that the doctors prescribe this and this and that, but they don't tell us. Certain times they do. They say, take it one time or twice. But
Well,
I mean, like I've been taking vitamin B for, I finish it and then I get some more. I finish it and I get some more. So the doctors don't explain how long I should take it.
right. And for you, you're taking it prophylactically in order to prevent getting ill from something, right? It helps you to stay calm. It helps your nerves to be soothed and like that. Helps your cardiovascular system. You're taking it in order to have good health. Now, we're talking about if you were going in to fight the levels of cholesterol that you have. You're going from, okay, I've got cholesterol of 250 or 300, and I need to get it down 100 points or 50 points or what have you, to where it's in a good, safe range. This is a better way of doing that. Now, let me tell you a story. Let Susan make a comment real quick, and then I'll tell you a story.
I think it's important to realize that your doctors are not evil and they're not against you, and that when you go back in, that you should report
Right.
accurately, because
Exactly.
you want it accurate in your records should you ever end up in an emergency situation. And that if you can't find someone that you can work with, maybe you need to find somebody else.
Correct.
Because it's important, because there's a lot of really caring people out there and they just don't know. or, you know, what their requirements are on the other side that we're not aware of. And so if you can engage them in the idea to respect that you want to try lifestyle things first, a lot
Yes.
of them are fine with that.
That's
So
right.
I don't think deception ever helps us.
Yes, and I agree 100%. I mean, if you're going in and you're getting a test result done and like that, you know, never be unkind to this individual. I mean, this individual is doing the absolute best that they can for you. However, your training says that there may be a better way. Now, what if your cholesterol is off the chart and you've tried all the natural things and you can't get it down? Now, it might be a good idea to do some medication for a short period of time just to get it to where you're not in a danger situation. But lifestyle should always be your first and hopefully your last resort for all these things. You see what I'm saying?
We do have to take into consideration, though, the fact that the American Medical Association is prejudiced towards natural remedies. In some cases, they are downright hostile toward them, and that statin drugs are known to be dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
They cause muscle wasting. We know that. AMA knows that, and they don't care because the pharmaceutical companies want to sell them to us. I work with an aged population, and they are rapidly losing their musculature because every one of them is on statin drugs, just so that the pharmaceutical industry can make money. And so a lot of these things that they are doing to us, they may be ignorant, they may not be as ignorant as we like to think they are, but if we don't take a stand, from what I've seen in nursing homes, if you don't take a stand, the doctors will ruin your health with drugs, with polypharmacy. You will be ruined, destroyed, utterly.
Okay. So the reality is that who's in charge of your health? You are.
Yeah.
You've got to be your best advocate for your health. And so, you know, and like Susan was saying, you know, we don't need to be unkind. We just need to be informed.
Right.
And so if we are informed, you know, like I said, if I went in and I had my cholesterol checked and that doctor wrote me out a prescription and gave me a report of findings, I would take and wad up that prescription and throw it away. I don't need that because I've got a different plan. However, like Susan said again, you know, when I went in and he says, "Wow, this is working," and I said, "Well, you know, I kind of changed my diet. I started taking better care of myself, and I'm doing, you know, I have a vegetarian lifestyle, and I'm eating garlic and niacin and like that." Most of the time, these doctors will say, "You know what? It seems to be working for you." They're not going to be, "Oh, you can't do that and be my patient." Most of them aren't like that, you know. So, you know, they'll say, "Well, keep doing it, and you know, maybe you should check back in another 6 months or so just to see how you're doing." Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, when I was going to the doctor, they gave me a prescription once they thought it was high, and I had to take that too, the medicine that she's talking about. And I got so sick, I thought I was going to die, and I just threw it away.
Yeah.
And I told them, you know, that's why I don't think I have high cholesterol, because it doesn't even agree with me. And then they did find out I didn't, so praise the Lord for that. See how God works, you know.
First of all, always get a copy of your tests. Yeah. And, you know, second of all, try to, you know, I like to do it natural, you know, and I like my family and like that. And, you know, for instance, Kyle's a neurologist. When we took him into her, she was very amenable. She said, you know, I told her what I did for a living and things like that. And she said, "Do you have him on a program?" And I said, "Yes, I do. But, you know, we had some problems with it." And she said, "You know, we can work together. You know, just keep me informed of what he's on and how we can work together." And she has never been demeaning or degrading or had any problem with the program that I had him on versus what she wanted. And, you know, she said, if things get out of hand or we need to change something, you know, just let me know and we can do that. So, you know, they're not evil people. It's just that, you know, there are two different philosophies. Okay? So let me tell you a story. I had a gentleman in Kansas City come in to me, And at that point, I had mostly a chiropractic office. I still practice nutrition and like that. But, he was coming in because he had low back pain. Well, come to find out, he also had high cholesterol. He was up in the 300s, and he needed to get his cholesterol down. Well, he was a night guard, and so he did an awful lot of walking, and he found that the more he walked, the more it hurt. And so I said, it doesn't sound like this is a strain sprain type of injury. It doesn't sound like this is something that was traumatic or anything like that. And so I started questioning him about medications and lifestyle and things like that, and come to find out that he was on Lipitor. And so I said, I pulled my desk reference off of my desk and opened it up to Lipitor, and one of the first side effects was low back pain. And so I said, okay, I understand that you absolutely have to get your cholesterol down. So let's do this. And this is what I gave him, this right here. Only I put some numbers to it for him. And I said, I want you to come back in a month. When he came back in a month, and I told him, I said, look, I am not allowed to take you off your medication. That's something you need to talk to your medical doctor about, or you need to do yourself. And, through some talking like that, he said, okay, I'm going to stop taking this and see what we can do. In 1 month, he had lowered his cholesterol 100 points. He was still in excess of 200. He was 250 or 260, but he had lowered it 100 points in 1 month. Okay, and so the reality is that he didn't need the drug to do that. He stopped eating the things that had cholesterol in them. He stopped eating the things that caused his body to make cholesterol. He started eating more garlic, more magnesium, more niacin, and he found that those things were adequate enough to lower his cholesterol into a satisfactory location. Okay? So his back pain went away. His back pain actually went away in about a week. It took about a week for his body to get that medicine out of his system, and his back pain went away very quickly, actually. It was actually one of the first symptoms to leave.
When they had me on that Lipitor,
Yes.
that's the first thing that happened to me too. My back, I thought it felt like it was going to break.
Right.
And I thought, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I mean, I was absolutely miserable, and I couldn't even breathe. I couldn't breathe at all, I thought I was going to die. I literally really thought I was, Scary.
Okay. So all medications are poisons with a positive result. Okay? And we need to know that many times we have created our own health condition. Right? We've put something in our mouth, we've ate, we didn't move enough, things like that. We've created our own health condition, and that has caused us to have adverse health. So what's the best way to recover from that situation? Exactly the reverse, right? Okay, if you're eating burgers and fries and oil-saturated foods, stop that and eat foods that are actually going to correct your health. And so, this is, like I said, this is not necessarily a prescription, but, this is what I did for this other gentleman, and we found that we were able to lower his cholesterol fairly quickly, okay? And since then, we've done it over and over and over, okay? So you can take this and you can just add a few numbers to it, and it'll be a good way to lower your cholesterol. There's 8 B vitamins. Okay. All right, so let's have a word of prayer. Our Heavenly Father, thank you so much. You have given us a great and wonderful body. You have fine-tuned it, and it works exactly how you designed it. But we can add things or take things away and cause it to run rough or cause it to run well. We pray that we will be a machine that works for you. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.